What up, YouTube? It's your boy Carter 2D. Back with another story for y'all. A story about a girl named Elizabeth. Elizabeth grew up an outcast. She grew up pretty much an outcast. Her family pretty much disowned her. Her family didn't give two shits about. She was the second of seven. Her mom, at the time when she had her, she wanted a boy. She had about 5 girls before having her. And, she was hoping, the sixth girl would be a boy, and it wasn't. It drove the mother upset that she couldn't have, at least one boy. The mother was about to give up until she got pregnant again about 2 years after Elizabeth, and she had a boy. She finally had a boy. So she had 7 kids. Elizabeth was a sixth kid, and being that her mother was going through so much at the time when she was having her, she probably used Elizabeth as a target. And when the mother targeted her, so did the other siblings, and so did the aunt, and everybody else. The father was the only one that was like mostly close with her. The father was very close with her at the time until she grew up. I want to say when she hit about 16, her and the father's relationship, it quickly changed. And I want to say it quickly changed because she developed, as in her body was developed in all the right ways. She was a very attractive woman. And being that she was, she was pretty solid in her size. She had nice sized breasts and she had nice sized hips and a booty. It drew her father in. And with that, her father started to molest her and touch on her and stuff like that. And that made the mother more upset than what she already was, because the father was attracted to the young girl, which was his daughter. The sisters, pretty much bullied her, beat her up, tortured her sometimes. There was one point where they jumped her so bad that she was like, really, she couldn't move because they did a number on her. Broken ribs, black eye, dislocated shoulder. They really did a number on the girl, and she couldn't move out the bed for like 2 weeks. And that basically kind of forced the mother to take care of her in a way. And then, the last bit of advice she ever got from her mother was like, you got to be stronger than this. Ain't no weaklings in this family. And by her mother telling her that, it kind of shifted. Your own mother telling you these types of things, your father's, touching you and trying to have sexual situations on with you, it shifted her. So from that point on, her whole life changed. In high school, she met a couple of people who kind of was like similar to her. So she kind of gravitated towards them. She started hanging out. She started sneaking at the bars, meeting older guys. Some of the guys was there. They found her and was like, she used what she had to get what she wanted. Meaning, since these guys liked her so much, she would use them to get money out of them. She would use them to get rides around anywhere. And she actually met a biker girl. She went by Kendall. The biker girl went by Kendall. Kendall was a biker girl. She was a guy. She found Elizabeth very attractive. So Elizabeth used that to her wells. And she had Kendall beat on her sisters. One by one, Kendall would beat them up. And they would report it back to their mother, this girl, da-da-da-da. The father found out. And when the father found out, he was upset that this biker girl was beating on little girls and stuff like that. But these girls they wasn't little. The oldest sister was about 25. Other sister behind her was about 22. And then another sister that was like 18, and then 17, and then 16. So these sisters wasn't that much young, except for the ones who was under 18. But the father was just like, he was so precious of his daughters, he didn't want nobody touching them no matter the age. And he found this grown woman just beating on them for no reason, and he felt like something had to be done. So with that being said, Kendall actually pointed the finger at Elizabeth, and Elizabeth lied and said, no, I don't know this woman from a hole in the wall, da-da-da-da. And then Kendall went after Elizabeth, and what Elizabeth did, she picked up a boulder and straight socked her right in her mouth. Boop! And it shocked her father. Socked her in her mouth. Elizabeth got up, flipped out a knife, and was about to cut her, and the father grabbed the shotgun and shot Kendall in the back and killed her. That was when Elizabeth noticed she can manipulate people to her best ability. And she started to use that to her best ability. She started manipulating people. After high school, she started manipulating people. She started using guys for money. You know, she started, getting girls to do little dirty deeds and stuff like that. She started meeting these pimps out here in these streets, telling them, she'll work for them, but in no reality, she was, getting close to these pimps so she can rob them. And she was manipulating people to the point where she was being good at it. And she developed, her own style, her own unique and way of carrying herself. This is one girl who didn't have to use her vagina to get what she wanted. She used her brain, she used her choice of words, and she used her looks. She did not use her vagina to get what she wanted. There wasn't not one person like that could have said, I slept with her to get what I want. They didn't. She just talked to people very good. She was good at that. She manipulated people. You know what I'm saying? She used her words to the point where people was, whatever she was saying sounded like magic to their ears. You know what I'm saying? Until she came across a dude named James. James was a good-looking dude. He was well put together. He came from a loving family. He came from a wealthy family at that. She thought she could, wordplay James. And it didn't work that way. James was already hip to the game the moment he met her. Figured her out after talking to her for a few. And Elizabeth thought she had him. She thought she had him. She was like, I could use a little $500 for school, tuition. Would you please help me out? And he basically said he would, but never did. That kind of made Elizabeth upset. And she was like, I'm going after this dude. So what James had did was, he said, I'll bring you the money. Meet me at this hotel. He got Elizabeth to the hotel. Got her there. He gave her a cup of water. Right? It was just a cup of water. She was on edge. She's like, I don't drink. He said, it's not liquor. It's water. She smelled it. It was water. So she drank it. I guess after a few sips of water, she started to feel dizzy. Now, before she got there, he actually put something in the water, stirred it up good, and let it dissolve in the water. So that way she wouldn't notice it. James, he was like very good at potions and poisonous stuff like that. He was very good at using that type of stuff. And he got what he wanted out of her was fucking her. He took her virginity and he fucked her. He fucked her, put it on camera for proof. He got a butt naked. He did what guys do. They drug him and fuck him on some Bill Cosby shit, pop a pill and I fuck her. Woo! There we go. She woke up the next morning in the hotel, ass naked. He was already dressed. He had breakfast prepared. And he was like, it was a good night. I appreciate you. And money's on the dresser. So when she woke up naked, she was just like, what the fuck? Did we? Oh, yeah, we had a good time. Then he was like, she was like, you can't do that. That's rape. I didn't consent to that. Da, da, da. He shows her a video. You did consent. You was all into it. She didn't know what was going on. She was drugged up and they had sex. She got him. After that moment, she felt very vulnerable. She felt like this dude had her in the bag. Because after that, James just started, he just started taking control of her, fucking her mind up, getting her to do what he want. You know what I'm saying? And she felt like this motherfucker got me. He got me. This motherfucker got me. And she didn't know how to get out of the mind control game. She didn't know the choice of words to use for James because James was already well put together. He already knew what to say. He already knew what to do. He was one of those guys that was on point with his shit. He was not to be slept on. So what she had to do was basically learn all over again. She had to learn the different types of dudes she come across. Because the dudes before was just, your regular, street dudes in the streets, bikers. Those guys was easy to manipulate because they wasn't as smart. But when you got smart guys, she had to switch it up now. So what she did was, she spoke to her mother, and this is another time where her mother actually had a sit-down conversation. Her mother noticed the difference in her, difference in the lifestyle she had. And she was like, her mother basically was like, I respect you. I commend you for the shit that you went through with us and how you became this such beautiful woman. And that shocked her. And then, she was like, Mom, it's just, I always looked at myself as the black sheep of the family. Like, if you didn't love me. And their mother basically was just like, at the time I had you. She finally claimed clean and told, like, at the time I had you, I was upset. I wanted a boy. And I really took my frustration out on you, which I shouldn't have did that as your mother. I shouldn't have let your brothers and sisters run down on you like that. And I apologize. As a mother, I shouldn't have let my emotions get the best of me and take it out on my own flesh and blood. I hope we could look forward past this and move forward. They had a moment, that brought tears to both of their eyes, and they had a long talk, and she was basically telling her, like, I met a guy named James, and he's just so good at getting what he want out of me, and I don't like that feeling of being vulnerable to this man. And she's like, is it a boyfriend? She was like, kind of, sort of. He basically got her into a relationship. So they've been having casual sex and casual outings. She met the family, and she just didn't want to be bothered with this man no more. You know what I mean? She didn't want to be bothered with this man. She ends up getting pregnant. You know what I'm saying? She ends up getting pregnant and whatever. And she didn't want the baby, but James wanted her to keep the baby. So James wanted her to keep the baby, and she just wasn't with it. So she had to find another way to get away from James. What happens now is James meets her mom, and, the mom was just, like, so intrigued by James. James basically brought the mother because he came from a wealthy family. He had money. He was basically buying all the family's friendships and love. He was just buying it. He was basically putting the family under his wing. Money will make motherfucker do whatever you want them to do. And Elizabeth didn't like that. She didn't like that at all, how all her family was betraying her for James and stuff like that. So she had to, every time she tried to make a move, he would know about it because her family was betraying her. Her family, she was like, Mom, I thought we had this talk. I thought we was good. Why all of a sudden he come around and you just taking his side, you telling him what I'm doing, this and that and the third. It got to the point where James was trying to keep her on house arrest. You know what I'm saying? He was trying to keep her on house arrest. He was trying to keep her barged in. But Elizabeth had to learn. She had to learn. She had male friends that she learned from. Guys like him. Their biggest weaknesses, they dicks. And, they basically telling her some bullshit that she had to use her own mindset. And what she did it. She used her women power. She used her woman knowledge of getting what she want out of James. But first she had to get rid of people who thought she would never had to. One by one of her sisters was killed off. All different. They was killed off. She was knocking off her family. This girl was knocking off her family. Like, it was a point in her life where she didn't want to, but now she was just being traumatized by everything that they used to do to her. And with that going on, it put the icing on the cake for her. She knocked off her oldest sister. She got her jump. The sister after that, she pushed her in front of a train. The sister after her, her car exploded. You know what I'm saying? And with the one that her car exploded, she left evidence around. And she knew what she was doing. She was going to put that shit on James. And what had happened was the sister who got pushed in front of the train, she was wearing James's clothes at the time. So officers was looking into shit like that. They was looking into it, and they was finding all these evidence that pointed at him. And they got him locked up. So she ends up having this kid and moving. Before moving, you know, she goes to see James and let him know. Because James ended up doing life behind these 2 murders. James ended up doing life behind these 2 murders. And she basically told him, like, when she went to go see him in jail, you will never see your son again. I promise you, your family won't find me, and neither will mine. Why my family won't find me? Because you killed them. So he's like, I ain't killed nobody. You did this, you bitch. She was like, you right, I did this. I'm getting away from you, and you'll never see me again. And she walked out that jail. He went crazy. The guards had to grab him back up. And before she skipped town, the last person she had to deal with was her mother. She went to see her mother. She let the mother see the grandson. She told her mother, this is the last time you ever see him. It's the last time you ever see him. You and daddy. You and daddy will be the last time you ever see him. Now, her youngest brother is somebody she didn't really grow up with like that. Him and her didn't really have a relationship. He was a spoiled one of the bunch. And as they grew up, they didn't really have a relationship. But at the time, you know, the mother and father died. Elizabeth set the house on fire, and he wasn't at the house. He came to the house late. And what happened was Elizabeth set it on fire, and she stood there and watched it. And when he pulled up, he was like, what the fuck happened? Mom and dad is in there. What's going on? And she was just like, it's all gone. Just like them. And she turned around and vanished, and he ain't never see her sister again. That's the story of Elizabeth, y'all. It's your boy Carter TV, and I'm out.